There we go. We
There we
finally got
go.
it to work. Just me, you, and Humphrey back there. Lying in the background, taking up space. So, dude, I
Yeah,
wanted to do this call with you, obviously, because it's a big moment for you. We've got
it is a big moment.
you're leaving on your for your 5 week Ibiza residency.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Honestly, it wouldn't have really happened if it wasn't for fully booked and you. So I owe a huge thank you to you.
You are very welcome. Thank you for showing up and doing the work and getting yourself booked. That's what we like to see. Okay, so like what I want to do is, if I can pull in, we're gonna pull the whiteboard out and we're actually gonna do some drawing. What I want to do is I want to get an understanding so people can kind of put this together because uh we want to stand on the shoulders of the giants here. If you've managed to put some of the strategies into play and made some shit happen, we want other people to do the same. Okay. And so if you found what the gold is, send let's send the lift back down and show everybody else. Okay. So let's
Yeah,
look
let's
at
do
it
it.
like this. Let's kind of look at it from in three acts. Okay. Let's look at where you're at now. So let's look at the end point. And then what I want to do is I want to jump back to the very start when you joined us, where you were at then. And then let's look at what you've put in place step by step to get from where you were then to where you are now. Does that work for you?
Yeah, perfect.
Excellent day. Okay. So as of today, what have we got going on? Like give us the bullet points.
All the bits. We
All the
got
goodness.
all the goodness. You got Elevated Radio has 8 million listeners on 30 stations in 10 countries.
Elevated radio. Say that again. We've got how many listeners?
8 million weekly listeners.
8 million with a wow.
Yeah.
8 million. That's 30 countries,
30
30 stations,
stations, 10 countries.
30 stations, 10 countries. Okay, nice. Uh, and that is running how long?
About a year and a
So about 18 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's some good stats.
Yes.
You've been doing some takeovers lately. We had Kaluki on there.
I had Kaluki do a takeover on there. I just had Bike and All Recordings do a takeover. And we're doing Ibiza Rocks for my 5 weeks there.
Ah, nice. Okay, so a partnership with those guys.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got the radio rolling. What else do you have?
I got Elevated Academy, so I got my own music production coaching program as part of the
Okay.
Elevated brand.
Okay, you didn't have that when you came in.
No, we didn't
So that's you're teaching people how to produce.
produce professional sounding tracks and get them released.
Okay, perfect. And we won't run into the numbers or anything on that because that's kind of not really what this is focused on. But
Right.
it's giving you an income to stay full time in music, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Then on the gig side,
On the gig
we're
side, we just finished some headline touring here in the States for Q2.
okay.
We did New York, Chicago, Philadelphia.
Okay. You got New York, Chicago, you got Philly, and Ibiza.
Yes. So 5 weeks there. And then we have a couple of pending dates in Italy while I'm across the pond as well.
Okay. So tell us about the Ibiza 5 week residency. What's happening there?
So I'm playing Joel Corey's party every Wednesday for the whole month of July.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
So you're one of the headliners on the main stage with Joel.
Yep.
Love it. Okay. And we got some dates pending in Italy as well. You were saying. Okay.
Yes.
But I mean, getting like a residency in a club like Ibiza Rocks for the whole season, main stage up front with somebody like Joel Corey, that's pretty impressive. So let's pull it back, okay? When you
Okay.
started, like how long ago are we were? Is it 2021?
It's probably no, it's 2 years. It would be
2 years.
2 years, probably like right now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, wow. 2 years. Okay, so we're talking 2022.
Yeah.
So like what was happening back then, and what was it that you were missing, do you think?
So, I mean, back then I kind of had that mentality that you talk about where I was like, all right, if I just sit in a studio and I produce a banger and it hits the Beatport charts, then like all the booking agents and all the festivals and everyone's gonna come knock on that door right there and
Yeah.
just be like, yeah, like we want to book you, like you're off to the moon. And I can tell you that that's not what happens. I've had multiple Beatport top tens and stuff like that, and no gigs really came from it.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I was missing it. Prior to that point, like pre-COVID, I had like a manager slash agent that was kind of involved in, the New York scene and stuff. And so like I was getting gigs through them and some international stuff. I played El Road twice and had a good relationship with those guys. But then after a while, like I just kind of was doing my own thing and I had no direction, no gigs were coming in. And I was just really in the studio all the time and couldn't figure out how to get anything, to be honest.
Okay, nice. So like you had some contacts that were able to arrange some stuff for you, but outside of that, it was hard to create the new ones and kind of build the juice yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, nice. So 2022, let's start there. When you came into the program, what was the
Mhm.
first what's the first step you took towards getting the results that you have now? What's the first thing you put in place?
I finished every single video that you had in
Yeah.
the fully booked program, probably within like the first week.
Okay.
And then I was like, all right, cool. Now we got it content, this the signature, getting the domain name and getting like that shop window, like right. And so I wanted to make sure that I had content out. I was doing the storyteller. Um, I really planned it out, to be honest. Like I'd have like a whole month. Like I'd sit down, take the storyteller, I put it in a sheet, and I'd be like, all right, we're gonna do this one out of like the first column and that one, and I'd have all the posts and I'd write them out, and then I'd schedule it, and that was really like the first big thing.
Okay, nice. So, like that's it couldn't I couldn't have asked you to do it better, to be honest. I mean, that's you get the training, get the understanding, and then really it is that first step, isn't it? If you're going to
Yeah,
email somebody, you want it to look legit, and then they're going to check you out before anything else happens, and you're going to want to have you're going to want to be communicating on your socials the kind of artist you are. And so
yeah.
that is the right first two things to do. So well done on that front. Uh,
Thank you.
so then you had that rolling out. Okay.
Yep.
What did we do afterwards?
After that, you kind of ran through Atomic Promo. And so that got me thinking about, that kind of stuff. And so I came up with the Elevated brand.
Yeah. Okay.
And as part of that, with the Atomic Promo, it was like, oh, you're going to do the radio show. And I think it was the Romanos were talking about how they got like their show syndicated on a couple of stations. So I asked one day in like a call, I was like, oh, like, how would we get like your radio show syndicated? I think you were like, actually, it's not that hard. And you mentioned a couple of places. And I went to Distorted, filled out the form. They eventually got back to me, and I kind of like pitched them on my of the Elevated brand idea. And we wound up going, I went to ADE and had like a final meeting with them, but we were kind of already looking to like work together at that point.
Okay. Nice. So at this point now we've got the brand launched.
Yep.
What was the like? I try and get everybody to launch a brand if I can, and sometimes I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall because some people come in and you come in because you're an artist, you want to get gigs, you want to play great venues, you want to play great festivals. You don't necessarily come in because you want to launch a brand, but it's such a powerful tool. Like what have you found your brand gave you? Did you find it made it easier to do the things that you needed to do artist wise?
Absolutely. Like I feel like first of all, it gives you like legitimacy. Like you're building something. People look at you at a different light. It's like back in the day when everybody became a DJ and people started producing to like set yourself apart a little bit. Like it's just like another kind of tier to it where you're like, all right, I have this brand. It has these multiple things to it. You got your newsletter, you got your radio show. And I feel like there's just a different level of like respect that people kind of put you there and like they take you a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
And just using it in a similar way to like it's basically cheese, you know, like having the radio show and having that audience has opened up so many doors even outside of gigs where just, you know, like I had Kaluki do the takeover. Now like I'm on, like I have this relationship with them only because I had this radio show to offer, and then I just, you know, built it off of that and other brands as well. So it definitely helps.
Mike, can I ask you a question, mate? You know, when you say you got the radio show to offer, what
Mm-hmm.
does that mean? You offer them what? What do you offer people through the radio show?
So basically, like with in this scenario, like I'll
Yeah.
go to Kaluki and be like, look, I have elevated radio. It's got 8 million weekly listeners. You know, I love what you guys are doing as a brand. I, you know, would love to have you on to do a takeover of the show. We could do 3 or 4 weeks. And, you know, like we'll push you to my 8 million listeners. I'll do the intro and outro to showcase the brand and the artist. We could talk about upcoming releases. And, you know, as I continue the pitch, like an Ed Cheese later on, I'm just like, yeah, you'll get social, like, you know, assets and just basically come to them correct. And most labels take the bait on it because it's free promo. They're not doing any work.
Okay, cheers, mate. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
And yeah, the thing is as well, I mean, if you've just got like a Mickey Mouse radio show, as my mum would call it, where you're just knocking something out to no listeners on some crap station that everybody knows no one's listening to, the labels aren't going to take the bait. And so it's you've got to build up the correct package. And the way you have done it is you've got the audience, you've got the listeners, you'll have some credible stations you can mention on that. And so it works. And now because you've got Kaluki on it, the next time you offer to somebody else, you can say, and we had Kaluki on for a takeover. And every time something works, the next thing works better because it builds momentum.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay,
That seems to be what happens. And also, too, I always forget to mention this when I talk about the radio show and the perks, getting free promos. Like you reach out to a couple of PR companies and be like, yo, I got this radio show. Like, you know, I'd love to be on your promo list. And like they'll hit it. Labels will send you for, you know, like all their promos and stuff. So it's definitely a perk as well.
yeah, 100%. Once a PR person realizes you've got even one person in your audience and you're willing to share it, they will hunt you down. You open your curtains in the morning and they're standing outside the window staring into your bedroom. Okay, so after the radio, what do you do next? We've got the radio rolling, we've got all that happening. What was your next step?
I started building out the hit list.
Okay.
And so the radio launched in like November because it was just after ADE. And I was like, okay, I'm going to build out the hit list and I'm going to plan to start pitching in January because I wanted to build up the radio show audience a little bit. So I had like more cheese to like offer in the pitch.
Yeah. And so did you start pitching in January?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you had the radio show running for 2 months, and then we were onto the hit list. Talk to me about the process of building out your hit list, because I know a lot of people struggle with it.
Yeah, so I basically went through a couple of artists that I felt were, you know, broke through recently, went through their resident advisor, which was also a little more difficult because at this point, like resident advisor, like people aren't really using it as much. And then you also had COVID had just happened. So
Yeah.
like there was a lot of clubs who closed, who wasn't open still. So it made it a little bit more difficult. But basically I just went through artists that had a similar sound to me and started, you know, scraping their touring schedules, sort of like where they were posting that they were playing and just creating a list of general stuff first and then going in and doing the LinkedIn thing where I could.
Okay, amazing. And so it's rare that I see this. You're literally putting the program into practice exactly the way it was rolled out. So I love to see this. Next, after your hit list, you've got your hit list built out. How many? Can you remember how many people were on your first hit list?
It wasn't that many, maybe like 20 or so, because I knew that I wanted to pitch in January and it was a little bit of a struggle to like start really building it. And I thought to myself how I was like, I don't need to have 100. I could at least pitch like these 20 people and see what happens.
Yeah, amazing. And so how did the first, you got your first 20, you reach out, how did it go the first time?
I got a lot of first responses. So like I kept track of how, like when people would answer me. And so a lot of people answered the first and then like were crickets on the follow-ups. Like after, because I did like a 9-word to pitch, like to start, like, hey, I have a radio show opportunity. are you the right person to talk to? And a lot of people either came back to me with, yeah, like that's me, what's going on? Or, I've CC'd so-and-so, they can help you out.
Yep.
But I mean, I was going after some big ones, which we'll kind of get into, I guess, later in the timeline. But I was going after big ones, like EDC, Defected Croatia, things like that. And those two actually came back to me after the breakup email, and like we had like a conversation, but they have like their own radio shows and exclusive stuff, so the pitch kind of didn't work the way I would have hoped, but I was still having conversations with those people.
Yeah, and like that is the hidden thing. Quite often we'll say, people don't always want the thing that you're offering. They don't always want the radio show, but if they're replying to your emails and you're getting to know them and you're having conversations, it's still serving its purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we got some replies out of 20 people. Then what you do next?
Keep building up the radio show and building up the audiences. I wound up on Select, and so that like added some more ammo to the pitching. And just kept building out more of the hit list.
Okay.
And
so it's really at this stage, it's just more of the same. It's just taking what you have and improving on it. So because you have the radio show and it's running and it's going well and it's a thing that you can actually show rather than pie in the sky, after a while you were able to add Select because they're seeing that it's a real thing. Likewise, you have your hit list. You're just adding to that, bumping 20 people up to 30, up to 40, and just growing it week by week.
Yep.
Or month by month or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened next?
So out of those 20 people on the hit list, one of them was Pat from Ibiza Rocks. And we started talking, and he bit on the radio show cheese.
Okay. So out of your very first outreach of 20, we had one that bit, which was like a 5% conversion rate.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ibiza Rocks and talk to us about how that went down, how the initial content went down and how it turned from, hey, I've never spoke to you to, hey, come play Ibiza, booked.
So, it took a little bit of time. I definitely had to follow up a few times. He came back, said like he was interested, asked me to send him a mix or a couple of mixes. So I did that. And he was like, all right, I think that you will align well with Joel's party out of all the other parties that we have, that they actually book. Cause like you got a couple that like book their own lineups.
Yep.
And he, so he's like, but I have to run it through like his team. So like he came back and he was waiting on them for a while. Like I had to follow up a few times. Like it definitely wasn't like, okay, yeah, I want you to play. All right, you're booked. And like, that's it. Like I definitely had to stay on him a little bit. And then we locked it in for a date that I was going to be over there on the honeymoon, actually. And then, yeah, you want me to continue on with the Pat stuff?
Yeah, we can. So like, I want to stop and pause at that one for a minute because
Okay.
this is the thing that and I've seen it time and time again that separates the people that actually get the results from the people that don't. Like if we look at, like you mentioned the Romanos, for instance, or anyone that I'm seeing that gets consistently booked, you can see it's follow up plus he wanted some mixes plus follow up. So am I right in saying that at any point, if you hadn't have followed up, it wouldn't have happened? He would have just forgot about it and drifted off.
Absolutely. Like no question about it. Like, especially knowing him, like 1000%. If I didn't like hit him up and be like it was like borderline annoying. Like it wasn't like Romano follow-up level, but it was like, hey, I know you said like this, like I just wanted to check in on it, like whatever. He's like, oh, still waiting on Joel's team. And then it was like, give him like a week or two or a couple of weeks. Because at that point I already had him. I wasn't gonna follow up every 3 days. Like that's pointless. But I definitely stayed in his ear enough to get it done.
Yeah, perfect. And I think this is important for everybody because a lot of the time, first off, most DJs aren't even pitching, and they're thinking the gigs are going to just come to them. Then when we do start pitching, they expect, hey, the promoters are just going to reply and say, okay, here's the booking. And it takes that mindset like switch to go, okay, you're going to actually have to work for this like a booking agent would. There's a good bit of follow up here. Don't take it personally. Don't let your ego be hit that they're not swooning over you and booking you because of your musical prowess. You've got to dig to get this, and we all have to do it. So we got booked. What next? This is beautiful, by the way. We've started with like you were in America. You know, you're in New York. You knew nobody in Ibiza, and now suddenly a prominent nightclub in Ibiza is chatted to their team and has booked you completely off your own steam from a cold email pitch. Like, how
Yeah.
beautiful is that?
I mean, I love it. I was like, yo, look, it works. Like, I was like, it works.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so what happened next?
Then I had a release come out, which both tracks hit the Beatport top 10.
Okay, so we had a decent release. That dropped, and did you find that fueled everything else? Did you find that like
No, it
that?
didn't help whatsoever. Like, I mean, like, and I pitched off of it. I like threw like a bunch of like, hey, like, this is going on. I threw it in. It was nice to like put in the email, be like, yeah, like, and I just had this going on. I think I sent out another round of pitches to my hit list to be like, hey, this is what's going on, but nothing came in off the back end of that.
Yeah. Okay. That's sad, but not surprising.
Yeah.
So we had the decent release. You came and played Ibiza. Was that the next step on the
Yeah,
ladder?
that would be the next step in the ladder.
Okay. Ibiza performance. So talk to us through that. Like, what do you think? Because I mean, we're looking at what I say to every DJ is we're going through all of this hassle to get you a gig. And quite often people will flump it, get the gig, and not get the follow-up. If you don't get the follow-up, you're fucked. Like if I was a milkman and I dropped milk to 100 people's doors and they never ordered milk from me again, like you're never going to be able to be a milkman. There's only so many doors in your area, you know? And that's, as a DJ, your job is get in there, do a great job, and get back more times. Okay. So
Yep.
how did the Ibiza thing go? And what about that trip do you think set up bringing you back for a 5-date residency this year?
I think, it's a lot of different things. It's always how you carry yourself when you're there. Like, I think carry myself in like a professional way and would like talk to the team, not just, like the talent buyer, like the people that were taking care of me and just being respectful of them and hanging out and having a good time. Went and met the girl who does the advancing, who I'd been going back and forth in email with. And like, she was talking to me and I was like, oh, hey. And she's like, oh yeah, like I'm Bex. I was like, no shit, you're Bex. So I was like, oh, like, like you just like build a rapport with them. And I think that goes a long way. And then obviously I met Pat, the talent buyer, in person for the first time. And so we just started like hanging out and just hit it off, like just being genuine. And then obviously, showing up and rocking the gig is a big, big step. And like, I felt like I did that. And then I brought also a videographer who kind of filmed everything and put together a nice post, like recap reel of the whole thing, which was good, and obviously tagging Ibiza Rocks and showing that side of it. And then, of course, sticking to what I said I was going to do and put it out as the radio show and do the socials and do right by them and what I was actually offering. I think it was like a huge part as well.
Yes, exactly. So you said you would do something and you did it.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is actually a rare enough thing. Quite often people will promise the earth just to get their foot in the door. And then after it's actually happened, maybe not so good with the following up afterwards with the goods. So what about that do you think then led into coming back for 5 dates? Talk us through that.
So
How
after
did we
all that,
turn?
I touched with Pat.
Sorry, there was a bit of a delay.
Yeah, so after that, I stayed in touch with the talent buyer, and like we would talk every now and then I was going to ADE, and I saw that he was there or going, so I was like, "Oh, hey, are you going to be at ADE? I'm at ADE," and which I knew the answer, obviously, and we just linked up and we just hung out for a couple of days, on and off, and just hit it off even more and kind of built like a friendship out of it.
Okay.
And then you had the idea actually of like what would be the next step for me. It would be like, if I could land like a residency and do a Europe tour and you were like, "Oh, you think like Pat would do it?" And I was like, "Honestly, I think like he might." And so like I started talking to him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, like I can make it happen. Like we'll have to figure it out." And even with that, like I had to stay on top of him, like about getting it done. Even though he said he'd do it, like I'd still had to like follow up about that in business terms. And yeah, it just he was like, "I could give you every Wednesday in July." I said, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
I love it. Yes. So like I remember when we spoke, it's this magic word here. You were talking about like the most time you could get away was a month. And really people don't think, okay, how many gigs could I get in a month? But like in a place like Ibiza, that's seasonal. I mean, it's Emily Lenz, her residency in DC 10 last year was 6 weeks. You know, it was
Yeah.
6 dates at the peak season. And you quite often see that in Ibiza. Like Calvin Harris last year ran the full season, but the year before that, it was just a couple of peak weeks in July and August. And so you can have a 5 week residency in Ibiza. That's a thing, and you can call it a residency. But there's something psychologically, because what we're thinking about is not just what you get from it, but the gigs breed gigs. And so, what can I tell all of the bookers in 2024 and 2025 and 2026 that it's going to get me more gigs? And the words your own Ibiza residency, those really ring well in any pitch, you know?
Yeah, and I've even used it to get gigs right now. Like that, I've thrown it into the pitch when I was pitching like the Q2 US touring. I was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm looking to fill up my Q2 schedule before heading to Ibiza and Europe for like a 5 week residency and tour." So I was
Yeah.
even before I even did it, I was still using it as like a little bit of like gigs breed gigs scenario.
100%. Because the minute it's true, and you can shout about it. So let's step off. So we're in the Ibiza vein then. So let's pull it back then. With the rest of your hit list, how have
Mhm.
you been working that around the fact that you've got your Ibiza residency? So what have you been doing to turn more gigs into gigs?
All right, so I basically, well, I tried to build out a whole Europe tour around the residency. So
Okay.
for a good couple of weeks, myself and the missus were like, I put her to work, and she was going through like when people be like, "Oh, here's my tour schedule," like would go through, get the venues, put it in the hit list, see if we could find them on LinkedIn. If they weren't on LinkedIn, I would basically reach out in the DMs for like, "Hey, I have a cool radio show opportunity. Who would be the best person to reach out to?" And some would come back, you wind up in the message requests. So like not everybody.
Yeah.
So if you go into like Instagram on the mobile, a lot of companies will have like the email or contact thing. So I started just pitching the info at email because I was like, well, I just need numbers. And so I was like, hey, I sent you a message on Instagram, didn't like hear back. I know things get lost in the message requests, but like I have like a radio show opportunity. Are you the right person to reach out to? Question mark. And then put the pitch right in there anyway, just in
Okay.
case like they were. And so like I mean, I probably pitched 100, maybe more, for like
Okay.
EU stuff. And I think like a lot of it wasn't like no's, like we don't want this. A lot of stuff was timing. Who has their 2024 schedule already fully booked, let alone July.
Yep.
Like, who didn't have a party going in July, but stuff came out of it that was really good. Like it wasn't for nothing. I built a relationship with this Italian talent buyer who is the one who's like he's actually kind of acting like a booking agent for me and putting together dates because we just hit it off. And they're coming to Ibiza, like the whole kind of organization. So they're going to come through Rocks one day.
Okay.
I had somebody else in Amsterdam. They also do parties at Eden. It's like the same group, and they are like, this guy's like been hitting me up, and we've been having conversations. So it may not turn into a gig now, but it's definitely having those conversations and building a relationship where it could be something down the line. Um, and even other ones like in the UK that they were like, yeah, like we don't have anything in July because it's like a student party, but let's do you in October before ADE, and then we can also do a party together with your brand at ADE. And so it's leading to a lot more stuff, which isn't in the moment and not the Europe tour that I wanted, but it's creating relationships and building stuff that I can cash in on down the line.
And I think that's a really important one. Like I remember when we were chatting about that in the WhatsApp group, I think everybody needs to really focus on that. It's quite often we're swinging the bat for a specific win. And in your case, it's okay, I've got this opportunity to build a Europe tour. And because of that, you're having all of these conversations where people are coming back and they're talking to you, but you don't get the Europe tour dates across the line. But you're getting all of these connections and opportunities, and it's like you're planting seeds all over the place that may not even come into fruition this year or next year, but they're all growing at the same time. Like I always use that when we did the El Road tour, I've been speaking to them for stuff for 4 years, you know, and it takes, these things take time, but you got to plant the seed in order for it to grow. And
Yeah,
stuff like that. Even if you book no dates on the European tour, you've probably booked 10 different gigs down the line off the back of the conversations.
exactly.
Okay.
Like
So
I'm already
nice.
thinking about like next summer. I'm like, well, if they're booked now, like when let's start talking about next summer when this time comes around. And now if I got 10 people that couldn't do it this year, well now I got a 10-date tour next summer and
Exactly.
figure out the rest from there.
Exactly. And I mean, last summer feels like fucking yesterday. So next summer is going to be around, you know, in no time at all. And we want to book those gigs now. So
Yeah.
the American stuff, what we've been booking some American stuff off the back of it as well, right?
Yeah, played a headline gig in Chicago um in April, which came off of I did the what did I do? Oh, I was on a podcast, and the podcast host who I kind of built a relationship with, she was like, you should hit up these people. So I hit them up, name dropped her, and just hit them with the pitch. And they like, it was a funny one because I emailed them in November and I kind of like fell off on the follow-ups a little bit. Like I think it was more of I was busy and things were going on. And they came back to me out of nowhere and was like, hey, so sorry, like just found this, is my fault, like whatever. And they like bit straight away on the offer. Like we
Okay,
hopped on a
perfect.
call and that worked out.
Was that the radio pitch
And
again?
then yeah, the radio pitch. I always go with the radio pitch. Like I haven't changed up the pitch since the beginning. It just gets stronger as we go, kind of like you were saying. Like the audience gets bigger, you get bigger stations, on Kiss FM France, Kiss FM Australia now too. And like that gets bigger. You start out that you had Kaluki do a takeover. It's just that it adds that authority to, okay, well, these people did it, and that's a big
Yep.
brand, and we want to be associated with that big brand. So let's we'll do it. It just makes it easier for them to say yes, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And quite often, like I say it all the time, something works so well, we forget to keep doing it. So like you're better off being consistent with this one thing, because imagine in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years, if you keep adding to this, the beast of a pitch that you're going to have for it, the beast of the brands that's going to be involved, or the venues, the labels, it's just going to be, it gets stronger every single month. And you're going to reap more from it. So I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so let's land this puppy. Is there anything in here that that you added that you think added to how everything worked that we've missed?
Press.
Press. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Wait.
I think the press happened around the time that I got the radio show, actually, now I think about it. So I got like a PR agency, and that did help to an extent. Like it looked good in terms of the shop window, and like when people looked at the content, and I can have it in the email signature.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't, like it doesn't breed gigs in the way that you think it will. Similar to like how that release kind of flopped a little bit. Like it helps and it looks good, but like I think I had, well, I was like a mix mag. I can't remember which part of mix mag, but like artists to watch in 2024. And I like sent out like an email with it kind of like in there, but not. And
Yep.
like it didn't get me any gigs the way that you would think that it would like get you gigs.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the same as a Beatport #1. I think what people imagine is, oh, the day this goes live, I'm going to be inundated with gigs. Whereas really what happens is the results that come from it, you actually never see them happen. It's the fact that you pitched maybe like somebody on this USA tour, you pitched.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were reading your pitch, they read about the press or they seen the press or they seen that you had a B port. You know, they see these authority things happen. And so they add more weight to you. They give you more authority. They take you more seriously. Like you said up here, they give you more respect. Um, and you'll never have seen the difference in that, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's not as direct, like you said, as you think it is. Like it's not like, oh, this happens and then now the gigs come. Like it's definitely doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you just want to be mindful to incorporate it as a tool. Make sure that it's in your email signature and make sure it's clear on your socials. And so when you do pitch, when you do the work, then the press sort of starts to come into its own and become useful.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Okay, nice. I think, do we have any questions for Mike? Is there anything, we got a couple of minutes here. Is there anything about this whole system? Because like, Mike, I think it's beautiful what you've put into play here. And I got to give you credit because you took this and you run with it. Like, it's a lot of work to put this into play. And while we're looking at it here on a piece of paper, it looks easy, right? I did this and I did this and I did this. But a lot of people come in and they struggle to get all of this rolling. And I think actually a lot of the time, it's because maybe they don't believe in themselves or they don't believe it's going to work. You just had that belief, you know, you just put it into play for yourself and you just executed on it. And you're only starting to see, you know, the first fruition of real results. You know, God only knows what you'll be enjoying next year, but it's a beautiful thing to put into play. Does anybody have any questions on various bits of it? And we want to ask Mike. Let me know into the chat. Any questions? I see a couple of people typing. Don't worry, we're not going to leave you hanging here, Mike. So, whilst people are typing into the chat, Mike, let's
Away.
let's add another element onto this while people are typing there. Whilst we're in Ibiza, what's the next plan to make more results?
All right. So, I mean, to get the most out of it, I'm starting the Elevated Academy podcast while I'm out there. So, when I'm networking and talking to people, like, hey, I got this podcast, I want to have you on.
Yep.
We're obviously doing the radio shows, like it's getting recorded and put out as an Ibiza Rocks, episodes.
Yep.
I'm also bringing my Mevo cameras and I'm going to record each one video wise. So this way I can put it up on YouTube.
Yep.
I have videographer. We're going to do a like 5-week recap of like the whole thing. So I can have it right in my, pinned posts on Instagram and you'll get all 5 weeks. So you could be like, hey, instead of like 5 different ones and I can only put 3, I can bam, look, 5-week residency, like, and shout about it right there. And just seeing who's out there out of the relationships that I've built, like the Italy guy is going to be out there. The guy from Amsterdam hit me up a couple of weeks ago because he was going and asked if I was there already. So I'm going to link up with him. Got the Kaluki guys, and it's just building relationships and networking my ass off to try to make the most of it, of what I can.
Okay, perfect. I absolutely love it. And all of that is going to work. Really, it's the relationships, being on the ground, on the island, and sort of utilizing that is going to be key. Lisa has asked, what's the radio show like? Do you chat a lot? Is it all music? And what's the cheese?
So the radio show is just a 60-minute mix. The only thing I talk on is the intro and outro. So when I do like the show myself, it's just like a quick, hey, whatever, welcome to Elevated Radio. And then quick, like, we got tracks from this one, and this one. And then be like, yeah, like, I'm going to shut up now. Like, let's get to the show. Then in the outro, I just shout about, like to follow me on socials and anything that I have going on, like Elevated Academy stuff or playlist, etc. And then but the intro and outro allows me to talk about artists when they come on to do like a guest spot. I can be like, talk about them on the intro, which people like. Like I just had somebody who was like, yo, like hearing that out loud, it was so great, etc. So it's nice to kind of give people a little nice intro and respect. And then like you can talk about their upcoming releases and stuff in the outro. And the cheese is just the audience. Because I'm like, look, I'll talk about your brand and I'll put it out to 8 million people and they'll hear about you. And, like you can talk about X, Y, and Z and it just works. It depends on the place. Sometimes like a lot of places in the States don't give a shit, but it definitely worked a lot better pitching for the Europe tour than it did here in the States.
Okay, amazing. So Alexi, I have Lisa's help you get gigs. We discussed that, not so much. Have you used any production sessions or your mentoring as cheese at any point?
I haven't used that as cheese for gigs, but in the reverse, I actually use like radio show and things that I'm doing with the brand as cheese for the production sessions and kind of mentoring.
Oh, love it, love it. Okay, Joey, did you find LinkedIn effective for opening up conversations? We can answer that. I doubt you've ever done it. Have you? Have you, Mike? Hopefully you haven't.
No, I haven't spoken on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn just to scrape the emails for people. That's about it. Honestly, the Instagram DMs, like I think it's in like the email getter, uh, part of the playbook. Like I just use that. I'm like, hey, a couple of messages, throw an emoji in there, like,
Yep.
hey, love what you're doing in whatever city, bringing electronic music to insert city here, and like I have a cool radio show opportunity, like who would be the best person to reach out to via email, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just a numbers game as well, isn't it? You're going to get ghosted sometimes. You're not going to get ghosted the other times. You just want to ramp it up. Joey,
Yeah.
so just on the LinkedIn, if you've not done the training, we use LinkedIn purely to scrape the emails because everybody's on there. You can get their direct email.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. It was more you mentioned LinkedIn. I was like, are you direct messaging on that? So I was interested, but yeah.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Uh, okay, so Mike, like advice for people that are here on the call or people that are watching the replay even, and haven't started on this journey or haven't put into play what you've just run through. I mean, what advice would you give?
I think the most important thing would be just work the system. Like the system works, like doing the content, doing the hit list, like, and remembering that you don't need a list of 200 people to start pitching because you also don't know if the pitch is going to work. So it's good. You could get 10, pitch those 10 people, like, and then you can kind of refine the pitch as you're building the list. I think talking to a lot of people in here, the common thing is like, oh, like when I get to 100, then I'm going to start pitching. It's like, no, like you could start pitching today at 3. Like you don't need to have 100. And just the follow up, like the gigs come in the follow up. Like I use the PRM sheet. I put in, like, I know what day I hit them up on. I change the date, and then I just go and like I check my sheet and be like, okay, these are the people I got to hit up on this date, and I just fire off those emails and then change the date. And honestly, with the mail merge, this last time around, it's been golden because I just add the people to the mail merge. It automatically changes all the stuff that I put in, and like I could pitch, 150 people in 3 days because you get 50 a day. But that would be the big thing, and just be consistent. You're gonna get no's, and it definitely sucks, but just keep pushing at it because it works. And I feel like this whole thing is like a testament to that because I didn't do anything special. I just did everything Mikey said. So just listen to Mikey.
Definitely don't just listen to me. I've been just listening to me my entire life, and it's a shambles. So follow the modules, and then anything else I say, don't do it. So, Mike, I absolutely love that. That's perfect. You've smashed this. Guys, can you let us know into the chat, please, what has been most helpful about today's session? What's been most useful out of what you've learned today? I've really enjoyed running through it. It's been great to watch you smash this out. It's always
Thank
nice
you.
just to see how people take it and put their own flavor on it. And you've certainly done that. Marson says, follow all the steps. Here in Mike's ladder to current success. Here now, Mike uses the radio show as the offer. I didn't really understand that before. Oh, that's good to know. The motivation to keep following the steps. Yes. It's really that, isn't it? It's doing those hard reps. It's like just like the gym. Sometimes it feels like it's not fucking working. You just gotta keep repping it.
Yeah, and honestly, it was the most recent pitch was the one that worked. Like it was, I just kept refining it, and then once I had one gig, I was like, you know what? Let me try this gigs breed gigs scenario, and like talking about the gigs that I had there, and I feel like that helped the pitch more so than anything else. Like, because otherwise it was the same pitch. Like I didn't change anything. So yeah,
I absolutely love it. Mike, you're an absolute legend. Thank you for your time today. I've loved running through that.
thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I love being a part of this community. So
Yeah, 100%.
anytime.
100%. Well, you're heading off to Ibiza, so I'll see you here when you arrive on the island on Monday.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
excited to see all the guys at Nick's party too.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So guys, can we just unmute and give Mike some love? Give Mike some thanks for today.
There you go, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
Thanks,
well,
mate. See you Monday.
Thank you so much,
Hey,
Mike.
Alex.
Really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Love
See
it.
you on Monday. Can't
All right,
wait.
guys.
guys.
Have a good one. Anybody that's here this weekend, I look forward to seeing you. Anybody that's here on Monday for the guys' gigs, I'll see you down at Ithaca. Have a good week, guys. See you later.
See you.
Ciao. Thank you.
See you, bye.
See you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Peace out.
Have a good one. See you guys.